Hello and welcome back to the Bold Believers podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dawn, and in today's episode, I wanted to continue the conversation that we started in episode number 1. So I'll be sharing a little more about my story of what led me from witchcraft to Jesus, and then also diving into the changes that I have made in my business, because my entire business was really centered around magic and witchcraft. And obviously, once I accepted Jesus as my savior, things had to be changed up a little bit over in that area. Okay, so let's dive into a few of the things that were happening over the last month or so that while I was in the midst of them, I knew that like something was up, something was a little bit odd, but I had no idea that I was being led back to God. The first thing that was happening is I was really mad. Like, I was angry all the time, and that anger was coming through in my content in a very big way. If you've been following me for a while, maybe you noticed like the last month or two, and maybe even beyond that, maybe I'm not even recognizing just how bad it was, but lately it was filled with rage. And a lot of that rage and anger was coming out in very aggressive posts against God and against Christianity. Now, at the time, I thought that was completely justified. I saw nothing wrong with it because, firstly, I was a Luciferian witch, and I knew that the church had done awful things. And that's something that we can't deny, right? We can't just sweep that under the rug. Over the course of history, the humans, primarily men, who have been involved with Christianity have used the Bible as a weapon. They have used it as a tool for oppression. And so when I was creating these posts, I was thinking of all the people who had been harmed by this religion. That back then, like even going back a month or so ago, I honestly thought, why do we even have Christianity? This is an outdated, ridiculous religion that does nothing but harm people. And sure, some people are good Christians. I'm not going to say that there's no good Christians out there. I actually know quite a few of them from my previous times that I've been in church. And sure, it helps some people. But at the end of the day, do we really need this organization, like the church as a whole? I'm not talking about one particular denomination, but do we actually need this in 2025? Now, of course, I knew that Christianity was not just going to be abolished. I definitely understood that. And it's also not the only religion that uses that religious power to harm other people. But Christianity was definitely my target. The God of that Bible, of the Christian Bible, was definitely my target. So I was creating a lot of very angry, ranty posts about Christianity. And then even in my other content, because I also do business coaching, even in my other content, everything was just real mad. Like it was just really angry. And then even in my personal life, I was noticing I was mad often. And this wasn't something that I thought was a major problem. And I think looking back, it's because I was just used to it. I was used to feeling anxious. I was used to feeling upset. I was used to being just annoyed with the little things. And I would catch myself. I wasn't completely oblivious to the fact that I was focusing on things that were irritating me. So I catch myself and I'd be like, what are you actually mad at? Like, why are you focusing your thoughts on this one circumstance? Or why are you putting so much attention over here on this thing that bothers you? And I'd clean up my attitude for a second, and then I would go on and be annoyed or angry again. Now, I do feel it's important for us to feel all of our emotions. So I'm not saying that we should walk around like happy little positive robots, but I think we all know, like when we're being honest with ourselves, when we're just mad for the sake of being mad. And that's what was happening a lot not too long ago. And then in the online space, not only was I really angry creating content for my own page, when I was scrolling, whether that's on Facebook or Instagram, and I came across the word God, even if this was not from a Christian account, but if I came across the word God, because in the spiritual community, a lot of people will use God, source, and the universe interchangeably. But if I saw the G word, I would be filled with rage. And this kind of caught me off guard because for the most part, I've always been a very live and let live person. Even as someone who had been working with demons for years, I was never really that bothered by people practicing Christianity or using the word God. But all of a sudden, especially over the month, I want to say month or so, I don't know the exact time, but leading up to my conversion, I was angry, very, very angry at the mere mention of God. And I have to share this example with you because it is so ridiculous, but it's an actual thing that happened. I follow a lot of fitness accounts. I'm 47. My body is changing. So a lot of the stuff that I consume on Instagram is from women who are around the same age sharing fitness and nutrition information. This one woman I follow posted a reel sharing a day in her life. And she was walking people through the usual things that she would do on an average day. One of those things was spending time with God. And that's the only reference she made to God in her entire reel, was that part of her day was spending time with God. I almost unfollowed this woman because she said that in her own reel. Like, it was ridiculous how angry I was getting at the word God. And then over on Facebook, there's a woman who, it's so funny because we had a whole conversation about this after I went public. But she has been in the spiritual coaching space for a long time. We've known each other for, I think, around 10 years. And when she was referring to God in the past, she would often use the word source. All of a sudden, over the last couple of weeks, she has been using God, not source. And I saw a post of hers, and my immediate reaction was, oh no, not another one. Not another one. Like, Christianity got another one. Like, it was a bad thing that she was now using this word. And I told her afterwards, I said, I can't even, or I can now, but at that time, I couldn't even read your post. Like, I had to just keep scrolling. That's how triggered I was by the word God. And again, this is something that never used to bother me. I never used to be like this until the very last couple of months leading up to me coming home to Jesus. So I was very, very angry. And then next on the list, what I have is my language. My language was out of control lately. I've always been someone who swears. I have had a little bit of trucker mouth from the time I was very young. I have thrown in that colorful language into my content in my coaching business for the longest time because I don't believe that we should censor ourselves and hide who we are just because we have an online business. So swearing in my content, that was nothing new. But recently, and this is only, I don't know, I want to say like into March, I really started to notice it. And I'm sure it was happening before then, but around the end of March into April, I started creating a lot more video content. So TikTok videos and reels. And as I'm going through adding the captions, I'm noticing in a 1 minute long video, I've sworn 9 times. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Because I didn't have a problem with swearing back then. That didn't bother me. But it was the amount of swearing I was doing, and more so the fact that I wasn't even in control, it seemed. And I know that might sound silly because I'm a 47-year-old woman sitting here saying I wasn't in control of the words that were coming out of my mouth, but it was like every other word was the F word. I was using that as a comma. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, we need to pull back a little bit because yes, for self-expression, I'm all for that, but this is not cool. Like, I am not comfortable with the amount that I'm swearing. Then more so in my personal life, I was using the Lord's name in vain constantly. And it would be Jesus and then the F word and then Christ. And this was coming out non-stop. If I was telling my dog to drop a rock that he picked up on our walk, I would use that kind of language. And I didn't really use that too much online, but behind the scenes, I was saying that all the time. And I was like, I caught myself. I'm like, why are you saying that one particular swear word or like combination, I guess, of words? Like, why is it that one? And now, of course, looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, because the enemy will try to keep us on his side. And God was definitely pursuing me. So that language coming out more and more in a way that was almost uncontrollable. All of that rage and anger and hatred I was feeling towards Christianity and God. Like, there's a reason why that was happening now that I can see looking back. But those are two big things. And The coolest thing is, since I've accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, I've pretty much stopped swearing. Not completely, like not 100%, like it does slip out every once in a while, but it is a slip up. It's not something I even use in my language, and it's also not something I try to stop myself from doing. I did not sit down after I came to Jesus and have a conversation with myself that went like, well, now you're a Christian, you can't say swear words anymore. Like that never actually happened. It naturally fell away. Except for the odd time it will still come out. But for the most part, it has basically been released from my system. Same thing with the anger. Like I'll still get a little bit annoyed or angry, but it's there for a few seconds and then it's gone. It's not this persistent feeling that seems to just live in my body. The other thing I have written down here to share with you that I found really interesting is that I found it pretty much impossible to complete the publication of the audio version of my book. So around a year ago, it was January 2024, I published a book on Luciferian witchcraft, and it was available in Kindle and paperback copies on Amazon. The end of March, I get an email from Amazon saying, your book has been selected for a beta program. And with this particular program, Amazon was rolling out this AI audible publication thing. All you have to do as the author is choose a voice that you like the sound of, and it gives you a whole variety of male and female voices. And then you open up their system and it brings up your book in Kindle form, and you hit play and it reads it to you, and you make any corrections along the way. So it could not be simpler. Like it was so easy. And this was something that I had wanted to do. It was on my to-do list after I originally published the book, but it just got pushed way down to the bottom. So when this opportunity came up and I got the email, I thought, amazing. This is great. It's going to save me so much time. The book is going to get out there in a bigger way. It already had quite a few 5-star reviews. People were really enjoying it. And I thought this is just going to bring this work to even more people. And at that time, I thought the work that I was doing was good work. I thought I was helping people liberate themselves from religious conditioning. I thought I was helping people see this entire spirit world with God and Satan in a completely different way, with God being the bad guy, God being the slave god, and Lucifer being the liberator. He was the one in my mind back then that I truly believed had set us free, because he had helped us gain knowledge and wisdom that God wasn't letting us have access to. That's where I was coming from. That is the branch of witchcraft that I was in. So with this audiobook, I was sitting down, I was ready to go through the process of getting it published. And then I went through the first chapter and I felt nothing. Like I felt nothing in terms of the desire to continue getting it published. Now, I did not think to myself, this is wrong, this is bad, this is out of alignment, I don't think people should have this. I wasn't thinking anything like that. In fact, I thought it was just self-sabotage. I thought to myself, well, this is something that you've wanted to do for a while, even though it was very low on the priority list. And this is definitely something that is going to be good for the brand. So you're experiencing self-sabotage. It's no big deal. And I thought I'll just do some mindset work around it and come back to the project in another couple of days. Now, obviously, that book did not get published in audio form, and also the original Kindle and print copies were taken down immediately once I accepted Jesus. But I just thought that was really interesting that there was nothing there as far as a connection to this piece of work that I once felt very close to. That book contained a lot of my own spiritual journey, as well as what I believe to be true about magic and about working with demons. And then, as well, as I mentioned in the first part of this, in episode 1, I was feeling just distant with my own spiritual practice. This is something that has happened off and on over the years, so I thought nothing of it. I just figured I'm going through a dry spell, I'll come back at it, and it's no big deal. I know for some people who come to Jesus after being in witchcraft and the occult, they do have very terrifying experiences, especially when they're working with spirits. But that was never my experience. I had a couple of dreams that I talked about in the previous episode, but I didn't have any big scary moment with a demon. I didn't have any huge revelation that what I'm doing is wrong or against God. Like that never occurred to me. Obviously, once I accepted Jesus, that changed. But leading up to that, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I didn't think there was anything to worry about with my own practice. I wasn't seeking anything. So this is one of the reasons why the experience with God came as such a shock to me, because I wasn't seeking. There was nothing wrong. I didn't have a closet drug or alcohol problem that I was dealing with that I thought, I need to find Jesus in order to fix this. Like, none of that was happening. And I think that is something that more and more people are experiencing. They're in the New Age, or they're in the occult, and they're in witchcraft, and nothing bad is happening, so they don't think there's anything wrong with it. But once they get out, once they have an experience with Jesus, then you can see the difference, and then you can feel the difference. It's almost like there was this heaviness that I was carrying before, but I didn't realize I was carrying it. And then once it was lifted, once I came to Jesus, then I experienced this lightness and this freedom, which is funny because back when I was promoting Luciferian witchcraft, I saw Lucifer as the liberator. I thought this is the way to be free. Us gaining access to all this wisdom and all this knowledge and not being bound by any set of rules that some God in the sky is giving us, like, this is liberation. And now I can very clearly see that no, that freedom is to be found in Jesus. Okay, moving on, let's talk about the business side of things. Because for myself, I did business coaching and spiritual mentorship, and my witchcraft practice was very heavily entangled with everything that I was doing. And I know for a lot of people, especially with what's been happening right now in the coaching industry, there are a lot of people who are in New Age, who are in witchcraft and occultism, who are feeling called over to Jesus. But if you have a successful business doing one thing, that can be a difficult thing to let go of. And I don't want someone sitting there being called to God and not making that move because they're not sure how to get out of their existing business. With God, there's always a way. There's always a way. With magic and witchcraft being a huge part of my personal brand, I knew that I could not hide this from people. I knew that I was going to have to talk about it openly, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to do one big announcement, like rip the Band-Aid off and say, hey, I'm on Team Jesus, or if I wanted to do things a little more gradually and continue talking about business, because that was the main theme that my content had been around lately. Continue on with the business coaching, and then mention down the road that I had had this incredible experience with God, and then share it with people. And that did not feel right. I walked through that scenario and I'm like, no, I'm not going to hide something like this from my community. That feels completely out of integrity. And I know for some people that might be the best option, depending on where you are with your walk with God and depending on what type of business you have and the content that you've been creating and the offers that you've been creating. Maybe a more gradual approach is going to be the best fit for you. It's really going to be unique to your situation. But the immediate announcement, ripping the Band-Aid off style, was what I chose to do. I ended up deleting all of my old Instagram content and keeping the account that I had. And I did that because, firstly, the thought of starting over with a brand new Instagram account seemed a little bit daunting. I really didn't want to have to start over from scratch. I had a little over 5,000 followers when I was making this decision. And I also knew that even though I was going to repel like 99% of my current following, some people were still going to stick around because I did have people who were in my world solely for the business content. So I figured some existing people might actually like it, some might be curious and not really into it, but want to keep following, and the people who aren't into it, they are just simply going to unfollow. And I am so glad that I did, because I have received messages from people who have been in my world that I have not connected with for a very, very long time. Like, we're talking years here, who have reached out saying that they have been feeling the exact same way. These are people who are in the New Age. These are people who have not cracked open a Bible in the longest time, who for some reason feel drawn to Jesus. So I'm very, very glad that I made that decision to stick with my original account, because you never know who it is you're going to touch with your story. I'm here now walking with Jesus because somebody else shared their story. I did not come here because somebody commented, "You need Jesus," on one of my witchcraft reels. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because somebody shared their story, and even though I hated what I was hearing, even though I was triggered, even though I was angry and mad, it planted a seed. I didn't talk to anyone about this. I didn't consume a ton of content. Like, there were the 2 podcast episodes I listened to, and both of them just enraged me. But I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't hang out with anyone online. Like, there's this idea that we're brainwashed, right? We all get together and we all brainwash each other into loving Jesus. That did not happen. I was really mad, and then I talked to God about it. And now I'm here. So there is so much power in our story. So that's what I ended up doing with Instagram, and the same thing with Facebook. Only I have not gone through and deleted all of my content off of that platform yet. I will in time, but for now, the old stuff is still up there. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I had already told my clients, both my one-to-ones as well as the people who are inside my membership. They knew before I went public with any of this. The other change I made was to the podcast. This one, I decided to start over from scratch instead of rebranding my old show. So I took down all the old episodes. I think they're still up until the end of the month, until that one plan expires with the podcasting host that I'm with. But after that, they will all be deleted. In terms of offers, the only thing I had going live when I made this transition was a sales program. I ended up putting that on the back burner for now because I just do not have the mental bandwidth at the moment to deliver a live program, but I'm sure I'll run that sometime in the near future. What I did end up keeping, though, is my one-to-one, because I love coaching. At the end of the day, regardless of the spiritual path that I'm following, I love coaching. So I made some adjustments to reflect my change in faith. I made some adjustments to my pricing, to the specifics of the offer, but it is still geared to entrepreneurs who want to get their work out into the world in a bigger way. Really focusing on the mindset, on the identity, and on allowing more of you to come through. Because at the end of the day, that's what people are connecting to in your business. It's not just what you sell, but it's who you are. Okay, I am going to wrap things up there for episode number 2. If you want to connect further, the best place to find me is over on Instagram at I am Kelly Dawn. I hope you have an amazing, amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait to speak with you in the next episode.